Time for another board recap podcast. How are you today, Dr. Smith?
Great.
Here we are in summertime and getting a lot accomplished. And boy, things are happening fast here because it won't be long.
Yes, it is. But, always good productive times.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is a good time. And it takes a lot of time to get a large school system off the ground successfully. That doesn't just happen without hard work. So all
That's
that
right.
hard work is happening now. So let's take a look at good news from last night's board meeting. Start off, and boy, this has been fun. You and I have talked about this. I love this feature shot, and this doesn't include all of them, but we have been talking to high school recent grads, and they have done podcasts, and boy, they've just done a phenomenal job, and really inspiring to hear what's ahead in their future.
I met a couple of them
Yeah,
today as
just
they
this
came
morning you
in,
did.
and man, I am so enthusiastic about our future. We hear the negative stuff because I guess that's what kind of sells.
It's
in the
almost a
media.
common mantra,
Right.
just oh, kids
Yeah.
today, that type of thing.
Right. But man, these kids are on it. They're going to
Yes.
have a great future, and when they have a great future, we have a great future.
Absolutely. So, yeah, everyone should take pride when you listen to these students reflecting on their experience and their future. Talked about summer programs taking place. We have so many summer programming happening, a lot of great learning opportunities for students. One, if you're looking at this, if you're watching the video, you're seeing a picture of our high ability camp in partnership with University of Evansville. But we have 9 summer sites plus our high school credit recovery site, and our summer day camp. So, a lot happening in the month of June.
You bet.
Once again, welcome to our new teachers. We've had 2 groups since you and I talked last on a podcast come through for new teacher orientation, and so it's always exciting. Just talked to another group this morning. I'm sure you probably stopped in and
Yes,
saw
I
them
did.
as well. So
Yeah.
another great group to come in.
A lot of smiles.
JROTC, this program, if you're not familiar with it, a lot of people know what that is. We have a program here in EVSC. It's at Harrison High School, and had a recent competition where they did very, very well. And if you're looking at the picture, this is Cadet Vargas, one of our students who received multiple leadership awards. So kudos to our folks in JROTC.
That's an outstanding program. I
Really
don't
is.
think it gets a whole lot of media play, if you will, but every single year they continue to grow and have additional accolades thrown their way.
And really, just like any type of athletic, music program, you name it, they're not successful without a lot of dedication and hard work from the students and from the folks that lead them. And boy, that's happening with them.
You bet.
Also in good news last night, Phantom Regiment was in town on Friday. I'm just going to turn it over to you. Talk about it for a second, if you will, Dr. Smith, because you certainly know about this.
Phantom Regiment is certainly one of the elite drum corps in the world. We're very fortunate that they have a great partnership with EVSC, or we have a great partnership with them, I think would be the better way to say it. And I think that's really due in large part because of Dwight Emmert, who heads up our fine arts, and he is the corps director for Phantom Regiment. So they spent a week here at North High School, and then at the end of that week, our students were able to attend a camp with them where they learn from their instructors. And it's not just a standard stock kind of camp. Dwight talked to our directors and said, "What is it that we can do to benefit your programs?" And our director said, with our high school kids, movement has become an increasingly important factor in marching band. Teaching kids how to move and control their bodies, I think is incredibly important. So they spent time doing that. And he said that was a great improvement and enhancement. Wow. So that's just one small
aspect. What an opportunity.
Their show this year is phenomenal, and they did the Southern premiere, I will say.
Because they're not just local. I mean,
no.
They compete everywhere.
Yes, they do. So it just a phenomenal group, and the highlight of that was not only the performance of their show for this season, but then also our campers got to perform Elsa's Procession from Lohengrin by Wagner, which has been their standard signature chart since, I believe, 1977, 75 or 77. And I was blessed to be able to conduct that.
So, and I know you enjoyed that.
I tell you what, I certainly did. But close to 400 musicians on the field. That's an opportunity, an experience that our kids will not soon forget. And then Connor, rising junior at North High School, did the featured solo at the beginning.
And I think you were quite impressed.
Oh, my gosh. Flawless job. So
and that's big words. You certainly know a lot about that, being a trumpet player yourself. And I know you feel very very
Yeah.
good about what his future is in music.
Certainly, and high school should have those types of capstone events. I will guarantee you that he will remember that for the rest of his life, as will all the other campers. That to be able to be in the midst of a professional drum corps like that and an elite professional drum corps, and to be able to play, I mean,
Wow.
that sound is not something that you can replicate.
Wow, how great. And not
Yeah,
every community is able to have something like this. So, I
right.
mean, that we may take it for granted. I know you don't, but what a wonderful opportunity for students.
You bet.
Okay, and going back to good news, one last thing, and that was just a plug because we are getting now with, well, less than a month away from the EVSC Summer Musical. This is such a wonderful event that takes place every summer. This year's show, if you haven't heard, is Mean Girls. It opens on July the 18th at the ONB Events Plaza, and really looking forward to this because talk about another great learning opportunity for students to get to be in what amounts to just about a professional theater show.
Right. No, it's just another great opportunity for kids to help them learn and develop. And I think the common theme through all of these things that we've highlighted, ROTC, Phantom and the Camp, as well as Mean Girls, uh, that I think just shows the importance of programs. It shows the importance of teams. And to be successful in a team means that you will also be successful in your post secondary life in terms of being an employee, being a
Yeah,
contributor to
absolutely.
society, family, whatever. It's more than just going to school and sitting in a class. Uh, those kind of opportunities are rare, I think, but so important in developing the whole child.
And talk about great memories that you'll have for the rest of your life. These are examples.
Absolutely.
Well, that takes care of more good slash great news. Dr. Smith, we love highlighting that. So if you would talk to us about consent
You
items.
bet. So let's get started with consent item 3.02, consideration of allowance of payments. This time, $15.9 million, which is fairly typical when you stop to consider that 4.6 million of that were from invoices. So we had one net pay, we had contract bus driver payments. So fairly typical for this time of month. And then when we move on to item 3.03, consideration to approve grant proposals, we had one grant proposal, and that was a refugee school impact grant. This is what I would call a non competitive grant. It is due to a formula, it's based upon the number of refugees. Students that we have, and totals $194,000. And this is, as I said, a non competitive grant, but it is awarded to EVSC because of the number of students that we have that are Afghan and Ukrainian student refugees here. Moving on then to item 3.04, consideration to approve early childhood assistance stipend. So, because there has been an increase from state funding from the Child Care and Development Funds, as well as On My Way Pre K, we're able to award a stipend to our folks that work in our early learning childhood program as classroom assistants. So it's a great program. We've done this in other programs where we've had an increase in funding. So it's good for an employment retention strategy. It also helps us attract uh, great quality applicants for our positions. So we're glad to extend that then now to our early childhood assistants. 3.05, consideration to approve the agreement with TNTP, which is the new teacher project out of New York. And they have worked with us before. We really do appreciate what they have brought to us. As you know, or you may remember, that we deployed Eureka Math in half of our schools last year. We're now deploying that in the second half of our schools. And then they are also going to be working with some of our schools with ELA. So we value that partnership in collaboration with our teachers.
It's just been so beneficial. I mean, they've
Yes.
done a lot of things like this over the years, and I know I've heard you and other people speak so highly of this level of support.
Yes. I mean, the formula for outstanding student outcomes, you have to have great curriculum, you have to have great teachers, and you have to have teachers that know how to utilize that great curriculum. So that's why the deployment last year with Eureka Math in concert with TNTP, I think, was one of the most successful rollouts of new curriculum that we've ever had. Source of funding for that is ESSER 2 as well as Title 1. Then moving on to 3.06, consideration to approve the agreement with Raptor Technology. We've been customer with Raptor for, I believe, about 10 years, and they have done the visitor management system. Now we are purchasing additional services from them, really in the safety and security component of school. So we appreciate using a Raptor on an expanded basis. And one thing that I do want to share with the public, we're really blessed now post pandemic. We have more people coming in volunteering to our schools, which is great, or volunteering for our schools. So Raptor now is going to take on that process during all the background checks and then making certain that it flows seamlessly to our schools. So I think not only will it be a benefit for our schools and our offices in our schools, but also for those very important volunteers. It should be a
Well, I
much streamlined process for them.
absolutely. I can tell you from being on safety team for the district, yeah, this is something that we were very impressed with their product. So looking forward to seeing how this can take this up a notch.
Great. Then item 3.07, consideration to approve the renewal agreement with New Tech Network. I think frequent listeners will know what an outstanding high school we have in New Tech.
We talk about them a lot. So
Yes,
many great learning opportunities.
they are clearly a leader in the New Tech Network. We do have an association, certainly with New Tech in the network, and so we have to be a member of that. This is the renewal for 2 years at $29,200. 3.08, consideration to approve academic evaluator agreements. So these are two individuals that we've been blessed to utilize their services for the past couple of years. And this really does free up uh, our own staff to do MTSS work, interventions, things like that, that they could not do if they were spending all their time doing
It's
evaluations.
really a
So,
way for us to maximize
yes,
the usage of our school psychologists. They are
right.
so knowledgeable and highly trained.
Yes. Then 3.09, consideration to approve the agreement with Talking Point. So as um, we continue to get more diversification, excuse me, within Vanderbilt County, the ability to communicate effectively and seamlessly with our multi-language learners has never been more important. This is a great program that we have utilized in the past, and our folks like it a lot, so they want us to
Hmm.
bring it back,
Absolutely.
and we are certainly going to do that. Item 310, consideration to approve the Youth First renewal agreement. We have an outstanding partnership with Youth First, and they are really, I think, the premier provider of these services in the country. And they're housed right here in Evansville, and with the founder of Bill Wooten, an MD, and he remains very active with Youth First today. So we are pleased to be able to approve that agreement. It's a 3-year agreement, and as I said, certainly do approve what they bring to our schools. Item 3.11, consideration approve the agreement with instruction partners. Once again, we are very careful who we take on as a vendor, and
Absolutely.
instruction partners has worked with us for some time now. They are also an outstanding partner. They're going to concentrate specifically at Cedar Hall because of Cedar Hall's request. So as Cedar Hall now is taking on implementation of Eureka Math, as well as additional coaching and PLC support in that endeavor. Cedar Hall said specifically we would like instruction partners to aid us with that at a higher level. So that is what they're going to use a portion of their Title I funding to do.
Yeah, excited to see what a difference that's going to be able to make.
Yes. Item 312, consideration to approve the petition to the Indiana Department of Education for the School Technology Advancement Account. So we know this as the STAR account, or STAA, and this is a subset of Common School Fund that we will utilize to purchase technology. Primarily, it will be fourth grade refresh of their Chromebooks and perhaps some Promethean boards. Item 313, consideration to approve the addendum with the HMH Publishing Company. You know, there's a intervention called Amira, and when we reviewed our stats on the utilization of Amira and the success of students who used that Amira reading program, it was very astounding. Students that spent 30 minutes a week using Amira over the course of the school year saw improvement of 10 weeks more than a typical student who did not
That's
have
really
Amira.
incredible.
Yes. So, and it utilizes AI. Students basically read passages into the microphone, into the program. Then through AI, it will do an assessment of opportunities for advancement for that student. We'll provide them simple exercises to do. And as I said, the outgrowth is certainly outpacing what a student who doesn't have access to a mirror would do, to the tune of 2.5 months.
I mean, really just incredible when you
Yes.
look at success like that.
Item 4.01, recommendation of our personnel recommendation. So this is the time of year where we do some adjustments and things like that and reassignments. Because as you know, I am somewhat averse to just hiring the position again after someone's
That's
retired.
really been something you've
Right.
always been very specific as
Yeah.
we want to make sure the position is serving the needs that we have.
Right. Especially when we consider central office or those back office functions.
Mhm.
We always want to be very proactive and be forward thinking and not necessarily maintain the status quo. Just because we had that position for 20
Sure.
years doesn't mean that that position should remain as is. So we're always looking to realign our services for our school. So many of those were included in the personnel recommendations, as well as some administrators and others. So excited about the
Yeah.
folks that are coming on board.
And as you always say, if you want to check that out, click on the link on Board Docs and you can take a look at everything that transpired.
That is correct.
And we had one action item.
Yeah, so that's the consideration to adopt policy 4307, which is wireless communication devices. So I thought Rick did a great job in presenting this.
Absolutely.
This is a new state law. Before, cell phone or wireless communication devices had not been governed by a law in classrooms. That changes now as of July 1st. So this policy aligns exactly to the way the law was constructed. So I think Rick did a great job of saying this is the policy. So
Right.
after the board approves a policy, then we will continue to refine and then eventually adopt our guidelines
Right.
that align to that policy. So that guideline work has been going on for some time, but it
Yes.
could not be finalized until we did have the board's okay on this
Right.
policy.
And the state statute really takes effect like all new school or state laws on July 1st.
Correct. So, a major undertaking, but we've had schools that have certainly uh, tried their very best to provide a great learning environment. As we all know, cell phones can be great, and the smart watches, all
Sure.
those things can be very, very good and can be very convenient. But we also know how disruptive they can be.
They can.
I read a recent study where an average student is interrupted by notifications. I forget how many times in a minute over the course of the day.
It's a substantial number.
It is unreal. So we want to just certainly and simply have a learning environment that's conducive for students to be able to concentrate.
Right. And I think that's really the motivation why legislators created this legislation and why that was approved and why it's
Right.
impacting and because going in effect affecting all schools in the state of Indiana
Right.
for that very reasoning.
And I believe there are 24 or 25 states that have enacted similar
I think so,
legislation.
yes.
And I think the biggest district that has received some attention for that just in the past week was LA
I
Unified.
believe so, yes.
So that's a fairly large
Right.
district. I
Right.
think the second largest district in the nation, and they have implemented a cell phone ban. So I think there has been awareness of the disruptive nature. Now I think we have the will to say,
Right.
enough is enough. It can be a great tool, but not used properly, it can just be very
And
disruptive.
as you laid it out, the guidelines that are kind of the nitty gritty details, if you will, those will be out well in advance of the
Right.
school year. We'll make sure everyone in schools and families and their students fully understand those. And one caveat I want to throw out too is this in no way impacts instructional technology because we're
Right.
very fortunate here in EVSC. All of our K 12 students have their own device that we provide, whether it's a tablet for our youngest students, laptop computers for the rest of our students. So that type of work is going to continue.
Right.
You just won't have the interruptions from
Yeah.
personal
No,
devices.
great point. Great point. And as with any change, probably not everybody's going to be happy with it, but
Sure.
I hope everybody understands the why behind it. And that
Absolutely.
is just to make certain that
Right.
the best educational environment exists for our students.
And I will say, people I'm having conversations with, overwhelmingly, the response seems to be positive because they do understand the very things you've mentioned.
And I think students will understand it also.
I think they will. And we'll adjust. People will, students will too.
Absolutely.
So take us into, if you would, information items from last night.
Certainly. 6.01, consideration adopt policy 3540, which is the teacher appreciation grant. So there is a state law that stipulates in order for teachers to receive these grants that we have to submit our policy that is adopted annually by the board to the Indiana Department of Education for their approval. So this is a policy that aligns to some changes in the law And it's been reviewed by both our own legal counsel, by Pat Shoulders, as well as the legal counsel for the Indiana State School Board Association, and it has received their blessing. So next board meeting, once this has been adopted and approved by the board, then we will submit it to the Indiana Department of Education, and hopefully they will approve it. If all of that happens, as we hope it does, then the teacher appreciation
Appreciation grant. There you
sure,
go.
easy for you to say,
It's a mouthful.
then is paid out typically in December, and our teachers certainly should be the worthy recipients of that. So,
Absolutely.
as I said, we have to make this aligned to the state law. If it's not aligned to the state law, I would not be surprised if IDOA would reject it because it says it's not compliant.
Certainly,
with the
that would
state
be
statute.
problematic. So,
Yeah, it certainly would. And then, items 6.02 to 6.05, those are those monthly financial reports that Dr. Underwood submits for the board's perusal. And they receive those reports, and certainly a lot of other budgetary, the public part of the budget
Right.
process now becomes more visible. There's a lot to develop that budget starting actually in January.
the work really never stops. I mean, he
that
was
is a
asked that
great
by a
point.
board member
Right.
last night, and he said that actually started in January.
Yes.
And, we've done this before. Maybe in the near future, we'll have him back on because it's always interesting. You and I go through this full docket from the board meeting, and sometimes quickly at the end, we'll say Dr. Underwood's updates. Those are vitally important, and
Yes,
there
they
is
are.
so much information in those. So
Right.
we'll have him back, and he can kind
You
of
bet.
take us through those, and then we'll have him back again to talk about that budget
Yeah.
process.
And just a very brief reminder for the budget, our process is different than the city and the county
Very
in
different.
that the school board hires a superintendent and the rest of the staff to carry out the school board's wishes. So the budget that we present the school board is aligned to their wishes and their desire,
Right.
which is very different than when the mayor submits a budget
Right.
to city council.
Or when the governor
Right.
has legislation, to legislate. It's a different situation than state, local,
Certainly
or even
is.
federal
Right.
government.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's confusion in the public about that. Why isn't there heated debate?
Right.
It's like, well, very simply, if I'm doing my job,
Right.
I am making certain that we submit a budget that aligns to the school board's wishes because I work for them.
Yes, you do. All right.
Yeah.
Well, once again, we always say this, Dr. Smith, we covered a lot of ground in this. It's a summertime board meeting, and some people might think, what are you doing in the summer? If you listen to this podcast, you'll know there's a lot that goes on in
There
the summer.
is a lot that goes on, but it's all good work.
It's all good. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to go
Thank
through it
you.
with us.
Take care. God bless.